Christine?
Nancy Aldrich,
Right. Nancy, who's 0282,
and Barbara Craddock.
and Barbara Craddock.
8710.
So I think we can get started. And with the first item on the agenda is the COVID update. Joe, do you want to start with that?
Sure. We've kind of just been plodding along here on our sort of daily operations. Call volume on the fire departments for both towns has picked up in the past week or so, having nothing to do with COVID. We can tell, other than the fact that everybody seems to be moving around more, and I don't know, just for whatever reason. So we'll see what that means in terms of how things go. We were in Leverett last night, at least New Salem was, and we had several illegal burns over the weekend, Memorial Day weekend and all that. So I'm toying with the idea of sort of discontinuing the sort of formalized emergency operations center, the EOC situation, although it won't in practicality won't really probably mean a whole lot, because I'll still be doing what I'm going to do, but to sort of maintain that formal title over it. We'll make that decision by the 1st of June, whether we're going to actually do that or not. And we'll see what happens over the next day or so, whether we decide to do that. Beyond that, I don't have a whole lot else to report other than we have received a lot of PPE of various kinds, mostly through MEMA. One thing that they did send us last time around was a shipment. Each town got a shipment of cloth masks. So there are packaged 5 per package. And they're just basic cloth masks that are essentially up to us to do what we want with. And one of the thoughts I had was, well, we could use them for town meetings. We could use them for whatever we chose to use them for. We could give them out to town employees. We could give them out to ourselves. We could give them out to the residents. It's really kind of up to us. And it just so happens that there's yet another amount of that waiting for us down there at MEMA. I don't know how much, but I believe those are going to get picked up tomorrow. So we'll see. Right now, I have 170 of these things sitting in little packages over at the New Salem Fire Station, and 185 for New Salem. So we have them. They're not N95s, they're not surgical masks, they're not anything else. I'd throw it out there for everybody to sort of think about what we want to do with this resource. Or do we want to hold on to it? It's up to us to sort of make the decision what we want to do with it all. Anyway, it seems like a lot of folks have conquered the barrier of having their own mask, at least from just, anecdotally walking around and seeing everybody with them on. So I don't know that we really have a pressing need to give them out, but we can certainly explore that. We've been providing, or been willing to provide all along, surgical masks and to some degree other types of masks, the KN95s, to like highway department, the police. We've gotten some folks like that. We've already done that for them, and we'll continue to sort of resupply as they make their needs known. Beyond that, I don't really have a whole lot else to say.
Okay, thanks, Joe. So you said you have 170 masks for Wendell?
I have 100, right now I have 170 what are called cloth masks. And I have to say, I haven't actually looked at these things. They're in little packages of 5 per package. So that's 34 packages. So I have those right now. And from what I understand, there's going to be more. The thought process from MEMA's point was the second shipment was supposed to be given to the police departments across the state. They basically procured 200,000 of these things, and they're giving an allotment out to each police department in this, from my understanding, these police department in the state. So I think the New Salem police chief is going down there tomorrow to pick these up, and I'll take a look and see if they're the same things we have now. It just means about more of the same, and we can do what we want. I've already provided a certain amount of masks to at least to Chris Maselli. I'm pretty sure Ed has gotten some, and I know the New Salem PD have gotten a bunch of KN95s from us, which is what they'd rather have. They'd rather have the more protective stuff than the cloth masks.
Joe, there's been some talk, some discussion about the possibility of having the annual town meeting outside. Do you think
Yeah.
do you think those masks would be, the cloth masks are appropriate for that?
Yes, I would think so. I really don't, any kind of face covering is appropriate. And I'm sure Katie will fill you in on our meeting we had earlier today about the whole town meeting committee thing. But
Okay.
yes, that would be appropriate for that. Sure. So I know a lot of folks are now choosing to make more of a fashion statement of what they find as masks, so that's fine.
Good.
These are probably not fashionable. I will give them that.
So Lori or Christine, did you have any questions for Joe yet?
No, it sounds like as usual, Joe, you're doing a great job keeping everything under control.
Well, thank you. We hope it stays that way.
Mhm.
Yep, nothing from me either.
Thank you, Joe.
I'll stay on the call for a little while just to hear the report out on the town meeting committee process.
Right, well, that's actually scheduled, we have that on the schedule for 7:30, if that's okay with you, Katie.
Yes.
And in the meantime, Nancy, I think the next item was reopening plans.
Yeah, I didn't know if either the Board of Health or Joe had any comments about reopening the town buildings, which I assume fall under the office category. I think is that the next wave of things to open, or is that
Yeah.
started already?
So I can speak to that. It is, I researched this a bit with MEMA because of the guidance put out by the state does not specifically mention town buildings. So yes, they said it comes under the office category. That, as I understand it, is already starting to happen as of Monday. So essentially, I believe it's 25% of capacity, I want to say, is what you're allowed to have in there. I'm not sure that rule would apply to us in any meaningful way because we don't probably have that amount of people in like the town hall at any given time, regardless of what we're doing in there. The only time that you have a lot of folks is when you have committee meetings in that, I don't know what the name of it, the room that's down on the other end of the big table room. So, you'd have to be careful in there if you chose to open it at all. I know from what I've seen on MEMA's website, a lot of other towns are looking at June 1st as a time when they are going to officially open up their town halls for, I guess, normal sort of business, if you will. But it would be up to you guys to decide how you want to choose to do that. And I don't know if Barbara may have something to say about all this too, but that's how I understand it.
Barbara?
Yep. Yeah, we would have to decide when we want to open up to the public. And we're supposed to, now, Joe, help me out with this. Do we have to have one of those plans?
So
Do we have?
yes, I talked with Nancy about this and sent you
Okay.
the website stuff too. The answer is yes, we have to have all that stuff.
Okay.
Essentially a set of 6 documents you have to review on the MEMA website. So we would have to have the plan in place, and then we would have to attest essentially that we have the plan in place, and then there's posters you're supposed to put up that say what everybody's supposed to be doing. So yes, all that needs to be there. And there's no, if there's no outside pressure to change what we're doing right now, then you don't have to. You don't have to open everything up to the public unless, things seem to be, I don't know, Nancy, things seem to be going all right the way they are, right? Nobody's beating down the door, are they, to get in there?
No, nobody's
Yeah.
beating down the door. And I also think that June 1st, I just don't feel like we're going to be ready with these documents. I think that you have to have sign-in sheets if somebody comes down with COVID, so it's easier for people to trace who's been where.
Yep.
But, I'm not opposed to opening. I just don't think we've had the chance to really look at these documents and decide what we're doing.
Yeah, so I would say we would give ourselves however much time we feel we need to have to put all that together and then see where we're at, basically. So,
I downloaded some of those, the posters and template for the plan and all that. So I have some of that I can bring in for use in the building.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I just sort of filled them all out myself for the New Salem Fire Station just to see what the process was like. And it took me maybe 10 minutes to go through the whole thing. So it really wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, it's a checklist sort of thing.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Now, does each separate office have to do one, or can there just be one for the building?
I understand that there'd be one for each facility, so that building would, in my mind, be considered a facility, and you'd have one set of things there. And if you chose to open up something else, like the library as an example, has to have the same thing if they actually go forward with some sort of opening plan. I know libraries I forget what the status of them is right now, but they have another set of criteria, and I know a lot of them are now running curbside pickup and drop off as an example for.
Right, yeah.
So,
I spoke to Rosie a few days ago, and I think she was thinking of starting that next week.
yeah, which is fine. So
it sounds like we can all review all that material and think about this, and we don't really need to rush to open the office building right yet.
I
Is that
would
right?
concur. There's no rush.
Is that okay with you, Nancy?
It sounds good to me.
Any other thoughts, questions? Christine, Lori?
No questions.
Then
Just
we're
to-
off to
Does
broadband.
Rosie, sorry, Dan, just,
Yep.
would Rosie need, or is she already, sounds like she's already checking with the Board of Health. But is that something the Select Board or Joe should be involved in too, or is she has her own sort of authority to do what she wants at the library?
I think she has her own authority to do what she wants at the library, is my feeling.
Rosie and I had quite a long conversation about, what her plan is and what she's going to do. And she's on the ball. She knows what she's doing. And she was very thorough in what her plans are. And I think she's going to be in good shape.
Yeah, I have no issues with the way things are going over there. I think it'll be fine.
Okay. I think the next item is broadband interior installations protocol. And would that be Lori?
No, I had sent that out. We had gotten an email from Broadband. I think I sent it to everybody. It's precaution protocol for interior installations, and they're looking for the Select Board and Board of Health and emergency management people to approve it.
We actually talked about this last night at the broadband meeting, and the Select Board and MLP did approve what we had gotten. So I think Board of Health might be somebody we want to check in with on that tonight.
About their protocols, you mean, when they come to the houses? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I sent them a reply and told them that it looked good to me.
Okay, good.
Nancy, is that the same thing that they are doing in New Salem currently? Same protocol?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's perfect. It seems fine. I mean, we've had no reports of any problems, and they've been doing this for at least a week and a half now in New Salem.
Great. Okay, Audubon camper ships, Nancy?
Okay, just to report on that, we had our 2 camper ships that people were supposed to be writing essays for. First of all, nobody sent an essay, and it doesn't matter because the camper ship and the whole camp has been canceled for the year.
Oh, yeah.
So there will be no Audubon camp. So that's that report on that.
Okay. And
Can I just throw in something real quick?
Yep.
Speaking of camps, Pine Brook is not opening this summer either.
Okay.
Oh,
Have we heard any word from Kemsley whether their plans are, what they are gonna do, if anything?
Not that I know of.
Typically, they have a class, if you want to call it, what they do it somewhere around the end of June, and typically around this time of year, Phil and I and our health agent would go over there and inspect the facilities, and I have not heard a word out of them, and I would assume, given the travel bans and all that, they're not
Right.
able to actually do anything. I just was curious.
Yeah.
That's my assumption too, Joe. In fact, Kemsley offered the use of the buildings in town if we need them for something.
Right. And it's a pretty extensive facility over there, so if we do need something, they have quite the thing we can use. It's large spaces, full commercial kitchen, all kinds of good stuff, so.
Yep. Okay. So moving right along, we're at expanded environmental notification form for Bowen's
Yeah,
Pond dam removal and Osgood Brook restoration project.
Before we get to that, while Joe and Barbara are still here, if we could skip down to tag sale policy. We've been
Okay.
asked by the newspapers if the town has any policies in place for people having tag sales. So if anybody wants to weigh in on that, otherwise we'll just say no.
There is guidance for that, and basically, you have to maintain social distance, but people can't touch things. So it's going to be pretty hard to run. I mean, if they can do it like online, and it's kind of like you choose what you want and then pick it up at the curb or delivery. It's not what we normally think of as a tag sale. Well, everybody walks around all these tables and touches everything. That's not going to happen.
Okay.
So maybe for the newsletter, we could get word of that out, because I'm sure people don't know that.
Okay, when is the next newsletter going out?
Well, sometime in June. We don't know if it's
Okay, so I will forward that information to you.
okay. Thank you.
Barbara, is there a template policy that they have, people that you can adopt, something that's sort of a boilerplate thing?
For tag sales?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that, but I will look.
Okay.
I'll send it to you if I find it.
Thank you.
We're seeing a few more people trying to get into the meeting here. I'm seeing one that came through ending in 7124. Can you tell me who you are? Hello, 7124? Okay. So I guess we're good on the tag sales, and we're back to Bowen's Pond.
Okay, so I
So-
just want to let you know,
Go ahead,
Sorry?
Nancy.
I received a very large, probably 200-page book from GZA, Geo-Environmental Incorporated. It's a copy of a transmittal that was submitted to the Mass Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. It's a whole plan that has to do with the dam removal and Osgood Brook restoration project. The first 2 pages are saying that the project triggers a mandatory environmental impact report, and they're asking that be waived by the state. And, I know that the town was interested. I guess this is for your use and for review and comment. I can leave this on the select board table if anybody wants to come in and look at it. It's very extensive. It's got all kinds of maps and pictures and, and I don't know how quickly this moves forward or at what point the town gets to have its say on it. But looking at this, it certainly looks like they're going full steam ahead trying to remove the dam.
Well, can we contest the, Michael?
Yes,
Michael,
Michael, we
Edwin
can
is
hear
on.
you. Go ahead.
We have until the 19th of June to make comments. And I have digital copies of the report they submitted and the cover letter that they submitted, and other materials if anyone's interested in commenting about the project. Nancy's interpretation that they're requesting a waiver of a full environmental report is correct. I'm hoping that we can convince them that a further environmental report is necessary, and that's what I want to say about it now. I'm open to questions. Either in the meeting or elsewhere.
Mike, you said you had a copy of the report. Do you have that in a digital form?
I do.
Well, can you just send us a link to that or email that to everyone?
Who's everyone?
Select Board, Finance Committee.
Yes.
Conservation Commission. Conservation Commission.
The Conservation Commission has a copy. They've been.
The Board of Health has a copy also of that huge book you're talking about, Nancy.
Yes, and Board and saw somebody else today that they said they sent the report to. But
I would much rather see it in digital form than the tome itself.
Happy to make it available to you. Don't have a hard copy.
Christine?
So it seems to me that they should not waive the environmental impact study at all. That would be a comment I think that we could make as a select board, if other people agree.
I agree, and I see Lori nodding her head, so,
I agree.
and so does Barbara, and so we could dash off a letter to that effect right away and review the details later, further.
You'll want to submit details before the 19th of June, but an immediate response would be fine.
I think that would be good to do that immediately and review it further later.
So can Nancy write that letter for us?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. If anybody wants to send me some talking points, that would be helpful.
I'd be more than happy to help you.
Thank you.
That
Great.
sounds good.
Dan?
Bye, Joe. Thanks for
No,
coming.
no, I'm not leaving. I have a comment
Oh,
on
Go ahead.
this issue. I've been in contact over the past, I don't know, almost a year now with, what's his name? Tom Robinson, I think is the guy's name, who was,
Yeah.
I think he's the owner of the property, who's making this all happen. And so he's essentially pledged his assistance in helping us relocate the dry hydrant that will no longer be, usable once they do all this. So just know that I've been in contact with him, and we're looking at options as to where we can site something that's close by, a little essentially further south along that road where there's a larger body of water. And I would also ask if I could get a copy of that same report. I would like to see it, if that's possible.
Certainly.
Thank you, Michael.
So Joe, you're saying that there probably is a good alternative for the fire department?
There are places that I would certainly see as very usable. If you go a little further south along the road, there's sort of large, well, if you're headed south, I guess they're beaver ponds or larger ponds off to the left. And there's two spots which look doable. The question becomes is whose land is that, and what's it going to take for us to be able to put the dry hydrant there? The good thing that we've always enjoyed at the Bowen site now is the ability to pull the fire trucks off the road And we would obviously like to be able to do that again if possible. And so we'll have to see how it works. But right now, we're still sort of investigating it in terms of how we're going to get there.
Christine?
I think my memory is that Beth and Adam said that the dam safety people were willing to look at a way of creating a pool where the dam was, that a dry hydrant for a dry hydrant. So I don't know if that's part of this great big document or not, or how you would find out about that. But it is a good spot because you have good vision coming up to that from both sides, and there is room to get off the road. So if they could arrange something there, if they take the dam down.
That's very true, and I'm not sure, that's not been something that Tom Robinson has actually talked about in terms of his thoughts of what we'd be doing. So if that's a possibility, I would happily explore that as well. It would have to be something that would have enough size behind it and a fill rate that's fast enough that when we start, taking out 1,000 gallons a minute, it needs to come back in there at the same rate we take it out, or better. So that would be the issue. I'm not sure whether we get that or not. So.
The report is very vague about what they plan to do, and they're aware that it's an issue.
Yeah, I have one piece of little snippet from the report here in an email that talks about that he sent to me, in terms of what this may be all it actually says about it. But yes, I'd like to see the report, and we will do what we can to make sure we get something that's in place that is helpful for us to draft from.
Christine?
Joe, where did you say the other possibility was? South of the dam, but on the east or the west side of the road?
So it would be the east side of the road. If you go south of the dam, which is essentially headed towards the center of town, on the east side of the road, there's a fairly substantial body of water, and there's 2 points along the road there where the water comes close to the road, essentially, and both spots would be good drafting sites just in of themselves, without even the dry hydrant there. You just take the draft hose and throw it in there. But with a dry hydrant, it makes it a little easier to some degree to set up. The question
So
that I have,
is that close to my house? Just north of my house you're talking about?
Yeah, we're just north of your house at that point, correct. And Jillian knows what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah,
and,
right.
And there's very large bodies of water there. Now they probably are held back by beaver dams, which, as we've found in the past, sometimes fail and then they get rebuilt. And so anyway, we could certainly make use of it. The question is can we create a pull-off for the truck, and what's that going to involve in terms of expense and grading and whose land it is and so on and so forth. So,
Joe, that property is ours.
it's yours? Okay.
All Rise, and I'm a shareholder, and president of the corporation owns the property. So you could call me sometime and let me know what.
I will do that. I basically have my last communication with Tom Robinson was that due to the whole COVID-19 thing that we were involved in, I wanted to sort of put off working on this for a while, and over the summer I think we might get back to it and try to cite it. I don't think that this whole thing is happening right away, if I understand what he was telling me in terms of the dam coming down and the way this whole process is going forward. It's not happening like tomorrow, so it's not an emergent situation, but it's something we do need to attend to.
Right.
May I ask you if that hydrant remained, you wouldn't be unhappy? Or
Say that
would you
again?
be happy
I'm sorry.
if that remained?
If the hydrant remained where it was, we would not be unhappy?
If it remained there, you would be happy?
Yes. Well, we made that very clear from the beginning of this whole discussion that we would be very happy if it stayed there. What we need is something in place somewhere that enables us to provide water for fires. It doesn't have to be there per se. It just needs to be somewhere. If I understand the way this whole thing goes, that Tom Robinson ultimately has, the people who own, the guy, whoever owns the property has the final say on what's gonna happen there either way, essentially. So if they want to take the dam down, it's gonna come down one way or the other. That's how I understand the process.
Certainly as long as he owns it, yes.
I'm sorry, I
Okay.
didn't.
Go ahead, Joe.
As
No,
long as Robinson owns the property, it's likely the dam will come down.
Correct. That's exactly right. That's why I've been working with him to find an alternative. Thank you. Yes.
I see another person who joined on the telephone from 3395.
It's Carolyn.
Hey, Carolyn, welcome.
How? Thank you.
We're good. We're trucking along.
Okay. I'm going to mute myself.
Thank you.
Hey,
and
Dan,
Doug-
it looks like 7:30. We can go back to Katie Nolan.
Right. Doug, could I ask you to mute yourself until you have something to say? We're getting.
Oh, sure.
Thank you. Okay, Katie, 7:30, and what are we going to do about the town meeting?
Oh, all right. Well, first I'd like to say this was our first meeting of the planning committee. So we did organization, elected a chair and a secretary, which myself as chair and Barbara as secretary. And we discussed various possibilities for space, indoor or outdoor. Indoor spaces could be something like Kemsley or Mahara Auditorium. Outdoor space, the Common, I think, was a logical selection. And we considered the warrant, keeping it as simple as possible, keep the town meeting moving as quickly as possible. As far as timing with the Finance Committee, Doug was on, is part of the committee, and he was saying they really can't get a budget together without the information from the state, without the free cash information. And in order to hold a meeting where we didn't spend a long time educating people about what was going on with the budget, we really have to get the information of the budget out early, either in a newsletter or in Zoom meetings for the public, or some form of informing people before the meeting so that the meeting can go along pretty swiftly.
Right.
But in order to finish the budget and get that information out, that's going to take beyond June 27th. So we felt that June 27th was too early, and that we should go beyond June 27th into July or even August. That would give the Finance Committee time to get the budget done with state information and to get information out to the public. And what we actually, we came up with a consensus recommendation today, and this was our first discussion, and we can discuss more and go into more detail about any of this, but was that the annual town meeting should occur sometime after July 1st, after the budgetary information is available. The warrant, we should have a stripped down town meeting with a limited warrant, which including the financial articles and any articles that are essential to running of the town. And basically, and this is actually, the more I think of it, the more I think that there's no good solution. Basically, we would ask citizens not to attend. We would ask that it just be a very small meeting, very few people, so we can use a limited space and manage to do spacing and just pass or whatever, just discuss and make decisions on the essential running of the town articles. And this, there's no way we can stop people from coming. I mean, if hundreds of people wanted to come to the meetings, we couldn't stop them, but we could kind of encourage them in this emergency to let some smaller number of people come and go over the budget and the various articles. This would require talking to Robert Heller or in the other people, petitioners, about the MLP board petition article, and maybe working out some compromise that would satisfy the petitioners. And also speaking with the planning board about the moratorium. And Christopher Parker, who is on our committee, is going to speak to the planning board on Monday to find out what their feeling is about the moratorium on the cannabis facility. Whether they would be willing not to put an article on the stripped down warrant that we're proposing. So that's a lot of, and actually Joe said something I thought was a very good idea, that if we could have a fairly small meeting outdoors, we would get a sense of how to run it, and then we could move into a larger meeting, a special town meeting later that we'd be better prepared for. There are an incredible amount of logistics we have to think about, even if we had a short stripped down meeting, things like bathrooms, hand washing facilities. There's an incredible list of things we have to prepare for and have ready if we're holding an outdoor, even outdoor or indoor meeting. So I think that's the gist of where we are. And we are meeting again next week, next Wednesday morning.
Well, good, Katie. Thank you very much for doing that. That's a lot of progress in a short time. And I think we agree that slower is better at this point. But maybe we should go right over to Doug and see if how that reflects the FinCom's thinking at this point.
Well, we haven't had a meeting since last week, but we're all aware that we have financial information that is absent. And I was thinking that if we were going to try to have a meeting that did not involve policy decisions that required deliberation at this time, that we would need a lot of time to distribute the financial information that we would be covering so that people had adequate opportunity to review it and to comment and to ask questions, in that they would be absent. So they would know that what we were doing and that no one was trying to, I don't know, rush anything or push anything past people that was clandestine in any way. So, if there were people who were extremely concerned about the tax rate or things like that, that they have an opportunity to ask questions. It seems, I think most of you know that my main concern about the meeting not including deliberative issues is that it doesn't seem like there's any way that we could have a meeting that would be truly representative of the town, so that no matter what decisions the meeting made on policy, there would be someone who would feel that they weren't heard and they didn't have a chance to speak, or that the body of people who were there didn't really represent the issues, the whole town. And I think that's kind of tragic, but it doesn't seem to be any solution to me other than to just not do it. I sent some questions to Nancy today asking if, like, let's take the MLP board question. Is it necessary for any action to happen now If we don't take action right now, would the situation just proceed as status quo, where by the select board would continue to be the MLP board until there was a meeting at which it would be discussed further? And if that's so, you know, that would be helpful for people to know that, and it might help to dissuade people in a friendly way not to put articles on the warrant. There's no way we can tell people they can't. All we can do is try to ask them not to. And of course, the select board would need to withdraw their own warrant, that, you know, article that involved that. But if, on the other hand, there is some necessity to do something, then that kind of puts us in a tough spot. And so there's the two things: is the policy issues that I don't believe could really be aired fairly, regardless of where anybody's, you know, perspective is. And the other issue being that we need enough time to have a budget that people have, you know, a significant amount of time to really study and understand, so that they don't feel they're being, well, for lack of a better word, railroaded by the small number of people who would come to the town meeting. So that's kind of how I see it.
But Doug, you do see that, you do think that it would be possible to have a meeting just on the financials, if enough time were given for people to study the written information?
Well, certainly, if the goal, but the goal is to have a very small and very fast meeting.
Right.
And obviously that could get derailed, but if the town could kind of, you know, there aren't all that many of us, if we can communicate that we're going to have 20 people there, whatever we need for a quorum, and this is what we're thinking of passing, and if anybody has serious objection to those things, you know, let us know now. And if not, then we have a small number of people. They pass that essential budget that passes Article 4, and probably there's a few other essential money issues that are like interest payments, and that sort of thing, and then agree among us that there'll be a special town meeting where everything else will be, you know, given an opportunity to be discussed and deliberated.
Right. Christine?
Well, I'm not really comfortable with discouraging people from coming to a meeting. I don't think that that's the right way to go about it. We ought to always be encouraging people, or at least allowing them. And I also don't think that we should be discouraging people from submitting warrant articles either. I mean, that seems to me kind of counter to what democracy is about. Just to go briefly to the question of the MLP board, that is part of our agenda tonight, and Robbie Heller is gonna join in, so that I'm thinking that we could work out a compromise. On the other hand, it really isn't time. There's no time constraint on that. It doesn't have to be done this summer. It could be done in the fall. And my other thought is, when are we going to be able to have a meeting? You know, you put it off a couple of months, 3 months, well, then you have cold weather, you know, you can't even do it outside. Maybe the best idea is to have a small financial only meeting, or just small in terms of the warrant, and see how it goes and make plans for a meeting in, say, September. But I don't think it's not going to be better necessarily in September. That's all. My thoughts.
Well,
Doug?
it may be a year before we can do this. That's certainly possible. But I've already heard from people who don't want to come to a meeting that is, you know, that may present some danger, that are not comfortable using a microphone that everybody else is using. Without a microphone outside, to have deliberation would be ridiculous. People wouldn't be able to hear each other. The more people that are there, the more risk there is. Joe pointed out today, I think he can probably explain that they looked at spaces. What was it, Joe? You're saying you had a space that held 40 people and the most you could get into it and have social distance was 6.
Right.
So if you don't, if you don't have sort of a general agreement among people in the town that you're not going to come to the meeting, you're not saying you can't come to the meeting, you're not going to say that, but you're going to be able to say, let's look sort of like a little bit like we did with the ballot, but this is what's going to be passed, and we're trying to limit it to 30 people or something, and so that we can fit in the space that's possible while being safe. I just think it's an extraordinary circumstance that requires some extraordinary action.
Joe?
Okay, so Katie had sent around 2 documents before our meeting, which I'm sure she'd be happy to share with the rest of you all about some guidance put out that speaks to all this. And you know, when you look at 6-foot distancing and aisles that are enough of a size, you start looking at, you know, you rapidly get into very large outdoor spaces. They had a graphic that showed, I think it was like a football field where they had, I forget how many people, but it wasn't a whole lot of people spread out over a good portion of a football field. So once we start trying to conquer those logistics to try to gather, and so say we can assume we get 50 people at a meeting, which is a good attendance for most town meetings, and you put them all, you just do the math on 6 feet apart and aisles all around and one down the center and a microphone and lines for people to line up at the microphone. It just becomes a logistical issue that we have to solve, plan for, and communicate to everyone that this is the way it's going to work, and you have to work with us on this, otherwise it won't work. So it's going to be a little challenging to make this work out. There's no doubt about it. And doing it on the format like we have now with a large group of people is unwieldy at best. So I think, you know, I don't know that we can discourage people from coming, but we can certainly explain what the process is going to have to be. And I would, you know, I'm not a voter in Wendell, but I would certainly advocate, and I would advocate for in New Salem to have a small initial meeting as possible to make sure the town can run, and then have follow-on meetings at whatever the time frame makes sense to have them, to deal with the more hardcore policy issues that people need to attend to when we have a process worked out that seems like it might make sense to work. So that's about it.
Okay, is that Ray's hand up? Ray?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to, I think the MLP article could certainly be pushed back. Construction won't be done until at least October, so having the select board still as the MLP wouldn't change things substantially from how it's going now, and I think it's fine as it's a capital project. I have more of a concern over the MLP budget because the budget we passed last year was a 6-month budget. So if we took the 1/12 rule, we'd be operating on a much lower budget than we're going to need. In terms of the town meeting itself, I think I was one of the folks that expressed a bit of concern about attending, well, particularly the use of microphones. I'm very skeptical. I'm very concerned about that. At the same time, I know the town of Montague, there is a ruling that they couldn't turn voters away even if they had a temperature at their town meeting. So I think while I understand the concept of decreasing the size of the meeting, I think you need to plan for the fact that people will want to come out and exercise their ability to vote, because it's really their one chance all year to vote on things like the budget and things that really impact them. And there's no easy answer for it. I just know that, I don't know, you might run into some sorts of problems if you are publicly discouraging people not to come out and vote. Like I said, if Town Montague has a representative town meeting, so it's an even smaller town meeting, and even there's a legal opinion that you can't turn around away people if they're showing a fever. So if they're sick in essence. So I don't know what the answer is though, but I think outside is probably a good idea. I know microphones make it, without microphones it's hard to deliberate, but you may just have to kind of deal with it. I mean, there wasn't technology. This town's had a town meeting forever without various technological advancements. But that's just my feedback on town meeting itself.
Okay, well, I think we've got a lot of ideas out there, and we appreciate the committee working diligently to further refine these thoughts. Any further thoughts for tonight on this subject?
Dan, this is Nancy.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that if we are not going to hold our meeting in June, the town, I believe the select board will need to pass the 1/12 rule so we can continue to operate into July. I'll be going to a STAM Zoom meeting on Friday to go over the process of doing that, but we will have to do at least that part of it so that we can continue to operate and pay some bills in July.
Okay, thanks for that. That's good to know. Go ahead, Doug.
That I gave the meeting that Lori and I were at with Senator Cumberford. They indicated, and I don't know if Lori, maybe you remember, I think they said that the bill regarding the geographic location of the meetings and the issue of Division of Local Services, Director of Finance, is something that's in the pipeline and they expect to pass. But in any case, they're making a plan that will allow towns to access free cash, and I think by the wording of it, stabilization funds, without having a town meeting vote. And the way that they are doing it, they're planning to do it, is by having the town ask for the authority from the financial director of Division of Local Services, who will then approve it. And I suppose on limited and temporary basis, and probably, based on what they need. That makes a big difference as far as being able to move forward, because it would enable us to cover MLP, the broadband issues. It would enable us to cover interest payments and other things that need to be made in the first couple of months. Because we don't know what our free cash number is, but we know there'll be something. We don't know if it's going to be high. We don't know if it's going to be low, which is a big issue for what the tax rate winds up being. But we know there'll be something. So there's that, and we did fortunately keep over $300,000 in stabilization at the meeting last year. So there's enough money for us to move forward for a month or two, or even 3 probably. But we have to. That's the process. To go through the financial director of the Division of Local Services, if I remember it, not DOR, I think. But that's likely to happen, and it makes a big difference in the way that we plan. So that takes the heat off the issue, where would we get the money? And that's what one of my major concerns was.
Okay, good.
I can just say to that the bill or the legislation that is approving this 1/12, that has already been passed. It was one of the first bills I think they passed in April. The one that hasn't, I think, is the one about having it in having the town meeting outside of your town boundaries. I think that might still be in the works. So I think there are 2 different.
Was it your recollection, Lori? Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Was it your recollection, Lori, that the issue of getting the approval from the Department of Local Services was part of the first bill, or the one that's in the pipeline? Do you
That's
remember?
part of the bill.
We could ask. Okay.
It was part of the first bill, and I think Elena sent those summaries to us after that meeting, so I think it's filled out there.
Good, thank you.
Is that Ray?
Yeah, so Doug, would it make sense? Well, I guess what I can do is, do you think that this would cover the MLP? Maybe I should reach out to Deb Wagner down at DLS. Is that who you said would be handling that, the Director of Finance for DLS, if this gets through? Yeah.
Yeah, Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. Yeah, I didn't know that, who that was. Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Okay, I'll reach out to her
Yep.
then.
And the roughly, we would have access to $400,000 at least, probably, which would be backfilled later by taxation after we had a meeting. And so there should be plenty to be able to cover those things. We did, by the way, there is in the budget, there's a budget line item for interest payments on the network. And that was an estimate from Carolyn, who's on the phone, I believe. And I don't know how those two things connect together, but we have a number there that was an estimate from Carolyn.
Okay. We good on that for now? Well, I guess, Carolyn, are you here?
I'm here. I'm unclear as to what estimated number I provided, but Doug's got it.
I'll get you that if you need it, but
What was it for?
Interest payments on the broadband.
interest
Oh,
on the broadband.
Yes, yes. Okay, yes. I did
But-
provide that.
Okay.
So, but Carolyn, the item that we have for you, I believe, is the personnel policy,
Yes,
language to clarify benefits for part-time employees.
yes. In the definition section, it states, of course I have it right here. It states that a part-time employee who is eligible for benefits has to work more than, benefits meaning sick and vacation time, has to work more than 24 hours, 24 to 30 hours. But under the section in the personnel policy that says benefits, it, I guess, is unclear when read by some people that, because it just says part-time employee. In my mind, it's, you look at it as, because it's under benefits, it only applies to employees who are eligible for benefits. But because under that section, at this time, it only says permanent part-time. And it should say permanent part-time employee eligible for benefits, I guess, to be more clear.
Okay, well, you would like us to
Because
amend,
if you're going to open up sick and vacation time to every part-time employee in Wendell, then I'm sure the fire chief would like to jump on board with that, and so would every other person that works for town. That wasn't the original intent of the sick and vacation benefits. It was, like I said, it was intended for employees who work more than 24 hours or more. So I guess I'm proposing that we just consider it a clerical correction to the policy.
that sounds good to me. Christine or Lori,
But do we need a motion to that effect?
probably be
Or
good.
can? Okay, I make a motion that we let Carolyn clarify in the personnel policy underneath benefits, clarify who is eligible.
Well, what,
Do we have a
can I
second?
just,
I can second.
Okay, then we can have further discussion, Carolyn.
okay, I just want to make it clear, there are 3 places under the, it's section 11 entitled benefits. There are 3 separate places where right now the policy states part-time employees, and that will now read part-time employees eligible for benefits. And that's in the first paragraph, It's in the section B under sick leave and under vacation, just in case you want to be clear.
Okay, so there's 3 points where that change is going to be made.
Correct.
Okay, so that's the motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So you're all set to go, Carolyn.
Okay.
Carolyn, I want to say thank you for doing that. You know, it was Ray and I who got confused, and I know what the intent is, and yet, you know, when you read it, it sounded like that wasn't what it said. So it's just a minor thing, but I think it's good to have it completely clear.
No, I completely agree. And as I have found over the years with this policy, it always seems perfectly clear until we go to apply each section. So, you know, that's when these little details, like they say, the devil's in the details. So it's good to have it more clear so that, because you want it to be understood by every employee who reads it. They should be able to read it, understand it, and know how it applies to them. So it was a good catch and a good correction to make.
Good.
So can I ask one other question? Have you talked about, or are you intending tonight to talk about the potential employees that are eligible for any other COVID benefits, such as being given back sick time or being paid for sick time?
Well, we do have an agenda item, which is hazard pay.
Is it farther down?
Hazard pay request from the custodian.
And what Carolyn is talking about is not on the agenda, actually.
Okay, well then that's fine. You can talk about it another time, and I'll just write you a memo of who, from my take, may or may not be eligible for any other support, shall we say.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have any other questions for me before I sign off?
Well, you might want to hang around for the next thing.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Laurie.
Just that all these personnel policies just went out to people to sign. Do we feel like we need a new version for people to sign, or can people sign the ones they have?
No, I think they can sign the ones that they have, and what I will do is the 3 pages that are being amended, I'll just send out as and put revision or something on them, and they can just put them into their, if that's okay. I mean, if you want me to do it again, it's going to cost another $300 to print them.
I don't think so.
No.
It wasn't cheap. So.
Right, that's good. But Carolyn, we are going to talk about the hazarded pay request. Do you want to stick around for that?
Oh, I'll stay on. Yeah, I'll stick around. I'll just mute myself and chime in whenever you want me.
Thanks, Carolyn.
So we did get a request from the custodian regarding hazardous pay, which is obviously a select board FinCom decision to make. I did point out that the previous decisions had been based on contact with the general public in determining how much pay they were going to get. So I think that's just something that you should consider when you're making this call.
Can I say something at this point?
Sure. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Okay. First of all, I just want to make it clear, it was not the custodian herself who actually made this request. It was a third party. I just said that I would bring it forward. Well, Nancy,
the
you didn't know
custodian
that.
made the request to me.
Oh, did she? Oh, okay. Fine. So that's cleared up. But when you're considering your request, the custodian's position is one that is on my, I guess, list of considering other, based on the guidelines that the state has on who is eligible for leave pay because their hours are cut back because they have to take care of their children or they were sick or whatever. I was wondering if her hours, because she's been working less than her average, and that she would possibly be paid for, a number of hours up to her average because her hours were cut back because of COVID, not because she just decided not to, come in and do the work. So just, maybe take that into consideration when you're deciding about the hazard pay business.
Well,
Christine?
I can just start, I guess, I think I agree, or based on what Nancy pointed out, which I think we had a long discussion about, it does seem like she would not really qualify for hazard pay as we had defined it, or, and I mean, based on what Carolyn said, I think that it is a fair thing to consider that she would be eligible for some other kind of sick time, based on the federal law in terms of, people who can't work or have reduced hours.
Christine?
Well, I agree that, the criteria was that it would be people who are exposed to the public, and the custodian isn't exposed to the public because the buildings are all closed to the public. And even cleaning bathrooms and such, the public isn't there. So I don't think that position should have hazardous pay. It sounds like the other thing you're going to be talking about at a later date when Carolyn sends you a memo, but I'm just curious why her hours were, or who cut her hours, or is she just able to do the work more quickly, or I don't quite understand why her hours are less.
Yeah, it was nothing I asked her to do. I don't know if the library cut down on them.
Those are,
Library's been closed, so that would cut down on her hours.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's really for another topic.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but I think we have a consensus that her job does not meet the requisite qualifications for hazard pay.
I agree.
And I'll go along with that. So Nancy, can you inform her of that and try to explain it?
I will respond to her email.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. So I'm wondering if Robbie Heller is here at the meeting, if he's called in yet. Robbie Heller.
Robbie, are you there? I see a 6347 number showed up. Is that Robbie?
That's Sharon and Prue.
Okay, hi Sharon and Prue.
Hi, Dan. Hi, everybody.
Okay, that answers my question.
So we'll just go on to the next item then, which is Thompson Road concerns and proposed gate. It should be gates, plural. I think we came to the conclusion that we did want to install these gates and make a formal request from the state to do it.
Well, I make a motion that we ask the state to put in gates at the 3 places that lead to the problem spot on Thompson Road.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? I think we did discuss it, and I see Joe waving his hand. Go ahead.
Yes. So you're talking about that sort of repetitive fire pit party spot? That's in the
Right.
corner of Bear, whatever it is, Bear Trail,
It's-
Bear Road and Thompson.
It's also a dump.
Right,
But, yeah.
I know. We've been out there putting out fires, and gates are fine to prevent vehicles as long as we can have access and keyed access. And assuming that won't impede the folks that live all the way out there on that road to getting to their property?
Those folks have expressed the desire to have gates.
All righty, cool. All right. Yep, as
And-
long as we have access, we're fine.
We'll make sure that the police and fire do have keys to those gates, as well as the neighbors and the people who live on the road. But
Okay.
it may cut down on the amount of time you need to go out there.
Yeah, it's been a little while, but I've certainly heard some reports lately that people have been out there doing stuff, so.
Well, that's what we're acting on. We've had some very upset people in the neighborhood because of the number of cars and the lateness of the hour and the
Right.
noise and a lot of other things.
Well, especially now that it's getting quite a bit drier out. If they decide to do something really silly, then that could be a real problem out there.
Right.
Okay, thank you. By the way, I'm gonna, if you guys don't need me anymore, I'm gonna go. Are you all set with me?
I think so, Joe. Thank you very much for
All
coming.
right. Good night, everyone.
Night.
Night.
Good night, Joe. Thank you.
So I
So
think,
would this be DCR or Wendell State Forest, or who am I sending this letter to, this request?
Probably
well,
both.
it goes to the guy up at Ruggles. What's his name?
So that's the Wendell State Forest headquarters.
Right.
Okay.
And I think his name is Hubbard. Does that ring a bell? I can get that for you, Nancy.
Okay, thank you.
Do we need a
Would
vote?
these be, sorry,
We do.
would the base be closed all the time, or similar to the other dates
Yeah,
where they're open?
they'd be closed and locked all the time.
Okay.
And the state has agreed that they will put them up, and they're not cheap. I think they're $7,000 a piece. And 3 of them, but they've agreed to do it. They have the money. So yeah, we do have a motion on the table to notify the state that we'd like them to do that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we're getting there. I think we did tag sale.
We did. So the next one is a reminder, we still, as of July 1st, are going to be down an animal control officer / dog officer with Maggie's retirement. If we don't have anyone in town who seems interested, I will have to start exploring other options. I just wanted to know if anyone has come forward and expressed an interest in that job.
I've been sort of beating the bushes for it, and I haven't found anybody yet.
I mentioned it on the listserv one time and no one responded. It sounds like Nancy should begin to explore other options.
Yeah.
Okay, I think there's like maybe 3 different options, and we'll have to check the price on all of them. I'm sure they're not going to be cheap, but we have to have one, so. Okay.
Thank you for doing that.
The next item, I had sent to all of you a letter in support of voting by mail. If you're okay with that, it will be in the pile of things to be signed tomorrow.
It looked good to me.
Yeah, it looks great. I just will mention, because I got the call yesterday from the Kennedy campaign saying that their impression is that the legislature is looking only to do this for the general election, and they wanted people to specifically mention it should be for the primaries and the general. And in the letter you said the election cycle, which I think covers that. I just wanted to put it out there in case we think it might make sense to specify it more clearly, but honestly, I could go either way with it.
It doesn't hurt to specify it more clearly.
I agree.
So you can include the primary in that note, Nancy?
Yep, I can do that. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. The next thing, Lori had gotten a price from our current alarm monitoring company for switching to monitoring instead of on the phone lines over the internet. And we had another company come in this week, and I was hoping to have their price to compare, but I don't have a price yet from DetectoGuard, who's the company that put the alarm system in the highway garage. So I'll put this to the next meeting to see what kind of price we get from them, and then we can move forward with that.
Okay, thanks.
I
Laurie?
can just give a little bit of a background too. This sort of came out from when we had to figure out what services we were going to get through Westfield for all the town buildings. And I think we all remember that several of the towns have this alarm system which is reliant on a Verizon line. And some of those buildings also have faxes that are reliant on the Verizon line. So we have to, if we want to get rid of the Verizon line, we would need to find an alternative for this alarm. And other than an initial installation fee, I think it looks like the ongoing cost would be cheaper overall, and it might also be more reliable. So that's why we're investigating this.
Okay.
Thank you for looking into that, Lori.
Okay. So the next item is this marijuana host community agreement application policy, which is the one-page policy that the select board can adopt. And this would be for any future and current marijuana applications. I think we looked it over, and Lori and I went through it. Basically says the applicant must publicize and hold the community outreach meetings, and that it has to be the type of business being proposed, the size and type of structure, neighborhood and environmental impacts, steps of assurance on measures that will be taken to reduce or mitigate the impacts. And then after they complete that task, they must submit to the select board a package with a summary, a copy of the draft license, explanation of how they will comply with applicable license permits as may be required by the Wendell zoning board, and a draft host agreement. And the third item is a $2,500 escrow account for the town to cover legal costs for review of the applicant's submission. This application policy doesn't tie us to anything. It's just a policy to follow in the future. If you do approve it, I did have a couple of questions on it. The first one was, before they hold this community outreach meeting, does the select board want to approve their plan before they're finalized?
Off the top of my head, I would say no. Do the public presentation first so we have a better idea of the plan.
Okay.
That would
And
be
then
my hunch on it, but
I agree. I think that's a good way to go about it.
okay.
Yeah, me too.
And then a minor point, we had that they had to publicize it in the Greenfield Recorder. Is that what we want? Greenfield, Athol Daily News, both?
I think we should add that they have to send out a townwide mailing to all residents, even if it's just a postcard announcing the meeting.
I like that.
Okay. Can add that. And
And in terms of the Athol paper, they don't deliver to Wendell anymore. They don't sell it at the store.
so the Greenfield
and
Recorder is fine?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
it does.
actually think that the Recorder and the Athol have all the same stuff anyway, but I'm not sure about that.
yeah, so I think the recorder's fine, Nancy.
Okay, and then, so I guess the final question on this on this policy is if the select board wants to adopt it, and then I would send it off to our current applicant to let them know what you're thinking.
Christine?
I just want to Oh, no, sorry, never mind.
Okay, so
I think
I think we probably want to approve this, and can we have a motion on it?
I'll
I'll
make
make
a
a motion.
motion that, go ahead, Lori.
I shall let you go. I'll make a motion to approve the application, or host community agreement application policy written up by Nancy.
As amended in
Anyone?
this meeting.
Sorry, what was that,
Can't hear.
Christine?
As amended in the meeting, in this meeting.
Oh, right, as amended in this meeting.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Well, I have one more question.
Oh, go ahead.
This was something that, no, never mind. It has to do with the agreement. I'm getting those two documents confused.
Yeah,
So-
this one was the easy one.
I say aye to that.
Okay, and so do I, so that's unanimous.
Can I ask real quick, Nancy, related to this? I think we had said maybe you would have already asked them about having a community meeting. Did you ask them?
I had emailed them. I hadn't heard anything other than to thank us for moving forward with the process.
Okay.
But I did say that you were working on this policy and that the whole thing would be being sent to them. So they haven't seen all of the things that you're looking for yet.
Can I speak? Can anybody hear me?
Go ahead.
This is Sharon. I haven't seen what that you just voted on, that policy, but I am looking at the Conway one, and the last line in it, I'm wondering if that is still in the one you just did for Wendell. The select board reserves its right to withhold support or engaging in a host community agreement that it deems not in the best interest of the citizens of the town of Wendell.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Okay, are we good on that?
Yeah.
And then I think the next item, which is review of draft host community agreement. I've been looking at these various agreements, and I think I could probably look at them some more. Can we postpone consideration of this for the time being?
Yeah, I would propose postponing this until such time as they agree to give us the $2,500 escrow. At that point, we should involve town council. I feel like these are way beyond my ability to understand what we're agreeing to.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds good to me. Christine?
So I want to make a few comments since I won't get to when then doing it next time. And I actually put these notes into the draft that you wrote, Nancy, in blue ink. The assessors strongly suggest that we ask for a 3% host community agreement payment. So to me, it doesn't make much difference between 2 3/4 and 3%. And you don't actually, it seems, have to justify whatever percent you choose based on the agreement. But I just wanted to note that. And then Nan Riepslager noted that in the very beginning, in one of the whereases, it talks about transporting product to and from the facility. And she wanted to know what product would be transported to the facility. To me, it seems pretty obvious that it would be probably seedlings, but that's just a question that she had. And just in my own opinion, I would prefer an annual payment rather than that complicated 4 times a year payment. And I also just didn't understand the part about nonprofit. I just didn't get that section.
Yeah,
but
that rang some bells with me too. Like all of a sudden they're going to declare themselves a nonprofit and we lose any money we could get from them.
Well, I couldn't even understand it. It sounded like they couldn't do that, or maybe they could. I couldn't understand it. So that's all. But I do think it's a good plan to get their agreement or, you know, their understanding of our policy and their commitment to give us some money upfront for legal expenses.
Thanks for your comments, Christine.
You're welcome. Working to the last minute here.
Right, coming close to the finish line. Lori, did you have any thoughts, or can we kick this down the road a little?
Yeah, I think that's great. I did look at it also, but I think Nancy's point is good, that none of us can really assess it without legal opinion, so that's an important next step.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
This is Sharon again. On that, may I speak?
Go ahead, Sharon.
Just was wondering, I got thinking about just posting it in the Greenfield Recorder. What about the Montague paper too? I think a lot of our citizens read that.
That wouldn't hurt. Can you add that, Nancy?
So we're talking about the application policy?
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't think of it at the time. Well, I did, but I didn't know I could speak.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we're on to the newsletter, Nancy.
Okay, so at last meeting, we were talking about moving the date up for the newsletter, but if we're postponing the town meeting till July, I think we're probably okay with making it later. In fact, it would be better later, so we would have the information to put out.
Right.
So maybe we'll go back to asking for the items by the 15th of June, and it will be going out at the end of the month.
Sounds good for now to me.
Me too.
Yep.
Okay, and one last item that Christine had asked for, and I completely forgot. She had a conversation with Anna Seeger about 97 Wendell Depot Road.
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, let me gather my thoughts here. I was communicating to her our discussion. Mostly it was about redrawing the lot, you know, separating it into two lots and the 25-foot expected or regulated setting, also for a back line. And also I reported to her that, well, I just reported to her what we talked about at the last meeting, that we have to, if we're going to separate a lot, we have to get approval from the planning board. If they deny our approval, our request, we can go to the ZBA for another opinion. But also I reported to her that, you know, Laurie's conversation with the solar people, that they were willing to, you know, maybe make it smaller or put their fence on her property or whatever. So she was kind of, you know, she was heartened by those comments, like our conversation. She says she's really busy. She doesn't think, you know, she can't look at it soon, but I just reiterated my own concerns about letting it drag on forever. So she's definitely interested, and I think it's a wonderful use of the building, you know, to keep it in town and keep it viable, useful. So I just hope that the select board doesn't just forget about this for the next 6 months, that they keep bugging Anna.
Well, come to our meetings.
That's all. Come to your meetings. Probably you won't be able to keep me away. Anyway, that's all. I just wanted to report on the conversation.
Okay. Thank you, Christine. I think that finishes our select board agenda, and we have one item on.
I have one.
Go ahead.
I have one more select board issue. Adam Cole emailed a request to us this afternoon to gather seeds of wild native plants, like he did last year. He wants on town property to gather permission from us. So I said I would ask that tonight. And he also wanted to know how to deal with, there was something particular he wanted to get at Swift River School. I suggested he just ask Kelly Sullivan, the principal, about that. But I'm wondering if we have any objections to his gathering seeds for the organization that he works for.
No, no objections.
No objections.
All right, well, I'll let him know that. That's it for me.
Lori, did you have any other select board business?
No, no.
So we have this, I think we actually already discussed this as part of the town meeting discussion, but elected versus appointed. Do we have Robbie on the line yet? I didn't see anybody new come on.
No. Well, my understanding, and Doug can corroborate this, based on what Doug said, is that, well, and so if we have an article asking for an appointed board, we can't make part of that article be that, and that it would be voted again in 3 years or whatever. You can't do that. So I think Doug suggested, it makes sense to me that we would put our appointed board on the warrant and then have another article that asks that this be brought up again in whatever time frame was necessary. And that would be not a binding article, but I don't know what the term is.
It's a resolution.
Resolution.
Well, what
So
about,
to me, go ahead.
what about the idea of just not having any article at the moment and just going with the status
At the
quo?
moment, yeah, right. Well, it's true. I mean, we wouldn't even really be thinking about having an appointed board until late fall, right?
Right.
As long as construction projects going on. So it doesn't need to be done now. But I thought we could at least discuss what we might do about it. And I was hoping Robbie would be here and we could, you know, see if he agreed to that, but
Well,
that's all.
we can contact him outside of the meeting and see if he agrees to it, and just have that in reserve for a special town meeting in the fall if that happens. But I don't think we need it for the stripped down annual
No,
that we've been talking about.
I agree. Yeah. I agree.
Doug? Go ahead, Doug.
Yes, in the massive conundrum of trying to avoid having policy articles on the warrant, we would certainly need Robbie's acceptance of that, or whatever it is, or willingness to do that. I don't know of any others that are being petitioned, but there could be. But it certainly would extend the period of time in which the people who have vested interests would be able to negotiate, to reach some kind of an agreement to be able to move forward without a collision. But if he was to, if he would not agree to withdraw his warrant article, it would be a little bit of a problem. I don't know. I just hate to see that be discussed at a very strange town meeting for anybody's sake. But I don't, so I don't know. That's it. So we have to talk to him. I mean, the select board does really need to bring him into a discussion about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I would just say we should have it at a meeting, not necessarily out. It might be better to have it at a meeting, the discussion. We're all there.
At a select board meeting? And at a select board meeting?
Yeah,
Yeah.
formal meeting. Yeah, would be best.
So
Christine?
So
I think that I'm willing to do this, but one of us should contact Robbie and discuss the idea of a stripped down town meeting, and that we're going to be withdrawing his our article, and he did send his article to us, because I had said, well, we could just put it on, it doesn't need to go through the petition process.
Yeah.
So I will just make sure he is on board with that part.
And I
Okay.
can invite him to the next meeting.
Okay, good. And Ray, you had your hand up?
Yeah, it did occur to me that, construction is going to continue through fall, but we will be beginning operations in July. So this will eventually start to get rather complicated, and it'd be a good idea, I think, to have. So I'm just saying it can be pushed off, but it would be good probably not to push it off too long if we don't need to. Just in thinking about that aspect, because I think initially as the network's getting up and running, it'll require a team of people to kind of help with that, just managing the operations versus managing the construction still occurring. I also just want to ask, since the article's been submitted to you from him, what is the wording of his article? What does it encompass?
It's the same wording that we had at the last town meeting, where he presented an article for elected MLP.
So it would stagger terms, 1, 2, 3 years?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the election would be in May 2021, yeah?
That's
Yes.
right.
So you would have two people that would be on there one person on there for 2 years and one for 3 years that you appointed in the interim, right?
Right.
Okay. No, I was just curious. I hadn't seen what his latest version of the article was, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
I can forward that to you, Ray, but you can't have a combined appointed and elected MLP board. It has to be one or the other. So whatever the transition is, it goes from one to the other.
Oh, absolutely. This is what Shutesbury did. They formed an elected committee, an elected MLP board, with the election date, it was however far away it was. But in the meantime, as soon as the town meeting creates that board, it's a vacant board, which can be appointed to fill vacancies. That's exactly what they did. So that's why I was asking those questions around, you would essentially be doing a fill vacancy until the election and appointing 3 people, 2 of whom wouldn't be up for at least, 2 years and then a 3-year. So I'm just thinking about the mechanics out loud of what he's proposing. Thank you.
I'll send it to you.
Yep.
Did you have something, Nancy?
One quick thing that you'll be asked to sign is a letter for Union 28. We got a request that they are requesting a 1/12 budget from the Commissioner of Education, and as part of that, the Select Board needs to confirm that they agree to use the alternative method for assessment, which is our 5-year rolling average. So I have prepared that letter for you to sign as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Doug?
I just have a question about the mechanics of the MLP board creation. Is it our understanding that the select board could appoint an interim board without having the town meeting approve that?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Doug.
Oh, is it our understanding that, here, let me try something else. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Rats. Technology. All right. Can you can hear me now, I hope?
Yep.
Hello. Okay,
Hello.
good. So what I'm wondering is the mechanics of the board such that the select board could appoint a board without the town meeting having a vote that says there could be an interim board? Or does the town meeting have to agree to an interim board before you could appoint one?
I think the latter.
Second is true. Right, I agree.
Yeah, I could answer that in more detail. It's not an interim board at all. It's that as soon as the town meeting votes to create an elected board, that board gets elected at the next election, you know, whether it be a special election or, you know, your next annual election, which would probably make more sense. In the meantime, that board exists as a board with 3 vacant positions. And the select board, of course, has the ability to fill vacancies by appointment. Just like
I see.
Just like any
Okay,
other elected board. So that's what Shrewsbury did.
Yeah. I see. Yeah. Okay. I think I understand that. What Robbie and I discussed that could possibly happen would be to have the town vote to have an appointed board. I don't know whether that could be called an interim board or not, but then have some kind of a mandate to have a vote. I understand there seems to be general agreement that you can't do that a subsequent town meeting, that a town meeting can't mandate that a subsequent town meeting do anything in particular, which makes sense. I believe it was Kathy Becker was pretty clear about that. She probably knows. So there could be other alternatives, like somebody mentioned a non-binding statement that there would be a vote. I do, just for what it's worth, I do think that the town needs to have a formal vote at some point about whether or not in the long run the board will be elected or appointed. It could always be changed at a subsequent town meeting, but you know, that's not all that likely. So that's just wanted to say that.
Ray?
Yeah, the way it works is until the town votes otherwise, the select board is the MLP board, because that's what we did when we formed it. So until we take action, that's just the default.
And Ray, as far as you know, there's no deadline on that?
No, it's just, the select board could be the MLB.
Okay.
I mean, I think it
That's
makes
important.
sense to probably,
All right.
Get folks that are, that's sort of what they're focusing on. But yeah, the select board indefinitely can serve in that capacity. And I've heard the arguments for both these over the years. I'll just be honest that I have no opinion one way or the other, because I've seen appointed boards that don't work all that well and elected boards that don't work all that well. And I've seen appointed boards that work great, elected boards that work great. So for me, I'm just staying out of the whole thing. I just would like people to kind of come to a consensus and be happy about it, but or at least be agreeably, an agreeable consensus.
No.
But
I think what you're saying is exactly right, Ray. Yeah. That there be an opportunity for there to be some kind of a really true, sincere, thorough discussion on at a town meeting, and that people understand it and they make a choice, and that be something that people are at least satisfied that it was done in a way that they've been seen and heard and all of that. And that's my concern about it. I think that I agree totally.
And I'd really like it. I'd really love it if the folks who have differences of opinion could kind of work it out, but that may just not happen. But I trust that either way, it's going to be, well, it's a challenging undertaking. We're going to be running a network, and that's my biggest concern, is just that it operates well, and I've got faith that it will, but so anyway, that's all I wanted to say about it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Further thoughts?
I'll just let Robbie know that we're going to, we're not going to put it on, the select board's not going to put the article, our article on the annual town meeting. And we'll ask that he withdraw his and that we can talk about it next week, right?
Right.
Okay, I'll do that.
So seeing no further agenda items and
I have-
Nancy?
Just one more thing. Christine, we're gonna miss you.
Well, that was my next thought.
Oh. Oh.
Three cheers for
I'm gonna
Christine.
do. You
You're
probably
always
Privileged to
won't.
be here at your last meeting, Christine.
Virtual congratulations for the senior member of our select board. And happy retirement.
Thank you.
And come back anytime.
Here.
I'm gonna
Okay,
miss it
right.
all.
Thanks to everybody for coming, and I think we can adjourn at 8:49. Record time for an agenda item like that. Yeah.
Hi, Dan.
Yes.
Hi, Dan. It's Dan. Dan and Julia on Bullard Pasture Road, and we just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Christine,
to Christine.
for your service for all these years.
And we love the interview, your exit interview in the Montague Reporter. Learned a lot about your thoughts on your governing style and a lot of background and all the hard work that you've done for this town over the years, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank everybody for the kind words. I appreciate everybody. It's been a lot of fun for me.
Good.
Thank you, Christine.
All right. Good night.
Good night. Night, everybody.
Bye.
All right, thanks.
Good night. Thank you.